Hello and welcome to the Fearless Ones podcast, where we build fearless people, create and lead a fearless generation. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you guys this week with another wonderful episode. Kevo,
Heck yeah. Happy
let's go.
Friday.
Let's go.
I
Yeah,
can't
man.
I
Happy
can't
Friday.
believe this week has gone by so fast. I have kind of running appointments with folks, and one of the guys I talk to usually on Friday mornings, he's like, "Man, it seems like we just talked like 2 days ago and it's been a week." So I don't understand that. I'll never understand it, but you know what I
It's
mean, Butterbean?
part of it, man. Part of it is this time of year too, man. It's like you wake up and it's like,
Is
what
that what it is?
happened? I think
Yeah.
to me, the end of the year is always an acceleration. Like there's so much
Yeah.
going on. We have had, I mean, we just had a massive gift order that we just fulfilled that our whole team
Yeah.
worked on. You mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
That takes up a lot of time and manpower. And, we've got an event next Thursday night. It's this constant stream. And you just wake up and you're like, holy cow, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So grateful all the same, but gratefully slightly unprepared as per usual. But
all all good,
anyway,
man. It's funny. I saw somebody post something the other day. It said, "What could you speak on for 30 minutes with no notes?" Right? And I was like, "Try 30 hours. Like we could do
yeah,
this thing that we do with
yeah,
no
for
notes,
sure.
just from the heart." And
Yep.
that speaks to a lot of kind of Kev. We talk often about the most recent shows we've done have been really unpacking the myth around discipleship, and today we're going to continue to do that.
Right.
But one of the things that we've often said is you can't disciple somebody until you've lived it out, right?
That's right.
Until you've been in it, until you've spent time in the Word, been refined by the Word, learned how to listen to the Spirit, right? And so that's not braggart to say these things. This is the truth of our life and walk over the last number of years, yours more than mine. And now we speak from not only the authority and wisdom of the truth, but from the authority and wisdom of experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's right. We go back to the thing. You gotta show them before you grow them,
That's right.
and it's just a simple way of putting it. But let's we'll read the title, the failure of compartmentalized Christianity.
Hmm.
And so what we'll do is we'll apply that to, again, it's more like a mini series of shows. We don't have producer. We're doing all this stuff ourselves with just a few people.
Right.
We're doing so many different things, but but hopefully the content's there, and later on, God will provide and give us the production and the music and all the cool stuff. But hopefully the content's there. But think about the last, maybe a couple of months worth of shows, and a lot of times it's just pouring out the things that they're immediate. So, but this is an extension of that. It's like pulling an antenna up. It's an extrapolation of what we've been talking about, and it is. It's kind of breaking the myth. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Of humanism
Mm-hmm.
versus truly being His. And so that's what we want to continue talking about, but maybe just looking at it from a few different other angles, kind of giving the whole picture.
Yeah,
So
funny. This will ping you a little bit. I think a good friend of mine and a friend of our community, a supporter of what we do, Aaron. He gets coffee every month, and he and his family moved from North Carolina down to Florida, but they actually just went on a honeymoon trip, and they went to Franklin, your old stomping grounds. And he just said that he was having conversations at, the dinner or the restaurants and all these kinds of things. And he said, man, so many people right now are just disenchanted with the way this modern Christian culture is existing. And they
right,
know there's something more. They're hungry and longing for more. They're kind of awakened to what we've talked about as the humanistic side of religion, and the myth of Christianity. So today you use this language, compartmentalized Christianity. I think what you're referencing is this is actually one of the root issues that has gotten us to where we are. So, I'm
Right.
excited to break this down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. A good starting point might be just to be able to let's look at that particular type of culture where you get up. Franklin is full of Christians. It's very Cosmo lately. Uh, it's a great place, but I'd rather be where we are now because we always want to go and kind of go wherever God leads us. But it's interesting that idea of Christianity it's kind of everywhere in these pockets, and we call it the Bible Belt or whatever. But that really it doesn't mean much. It's so cultural. So all of that, a lot of times we just need to sweep it all away and then come back to it from a place of, wait a minute, what is God actually doing, saying? What is he up to right now? What's he always been up to? And then exercising our faith from a place of legitimacy, not in other words, you have to step into your faith. You have to truly exercise it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's not real. It's just talk.
Yeah.
So again, if that's convicting, great. But if it's not, then maybe you're in a good place. But hopefully, it's just about getting that idea out there. So, here's a good question. What's the first thing in that world? Go to any city you want. Any city you might expect to find some believers.
Right.
There are cities where you may not, right?
Sure.
We'll stick with the kind of places that we go. But what's the first thing that most people, even in our own audience, might say? What is the first thing every Christian says? Now, the question would be, or pointing to the world. Look at the world right now. Well, we know the world is an absolute mess. So we can point at 50 things right now and go, wow, these people are evil, all that stuff. So, but rather than spending time on that, let's just know that it's bad. And when we say the world, by the way, we're talking about people. When they say the world, all these climate goofs and freaky satanic people. When they talk about the world, they're talking about the earth.
The earth.
We're not. The earth is great. It works. There's plenty. All the people of the world would be one felt tip dot on a basketball if they were 3 feet apart. There's plenty. So I know people know where we stand on this. But as this stuff continues to bleed into and encroach upon our lives in one way or another, here's the question, and then the response of a Christian. All right, so there's your context. So what's the first thing if you go, man, it's tough out there, what's the first thing a Christian says? What you just whatever. I'm not looking for a particular answer, but I've got one too. So go ahead.
Yeah. If you're the question is, just so I'm clear on it, if somebody says, "Oh, it's tough out there," what's the kind of immediate Christian answer to that?
Yes. What do people say in churches or wherever?
Well, you just got to trust God, man.
Yeah. So what does the world need? What does the
God.
world need? Yeah. What do most people say? You know what my experience is, and I bet you'll agree. The world needs Jesus. That's what people say.
We need Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the world's bad. It needs Jesus. Yeah, exactly. But what's next? So that's what we're about. Jesus is the narrow gate. Narrow gate's open. Where's Jesus pointing? What's next? What's inside? What's beyond the narrow gate? Where's he pointing? People don't talk about this stuff. What they do is they go, well, the world needs Jesus.
Yeah, and don't qualify or define or focus or think about or meditate on or pray about or study what that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't mean people don't spend time in books and Bible studies and buildings and even benevolence, right?
Yeah.
This is about conviction, not convincing. This is about reaching into your heart and challenging you to grow for your own sake,
Yes.
and to live completely and fully for God.
Yeah.
So, I read a piece. I don't have it. I wrote it down, but this is one of my favorite things. I love that last journal entry in that my book, which was written. This is probably written almost 10 years ago, but just the very last part of it is, okay, what we talked about. We touched on it a little bit last week. Only when God becomes all that we want will we truly see that He is all we need. So that right there is such a powerful statement. But most people have no idea what that means. I'm talking about internally, in our
Yeah.
inmost parts, in the depths of our heart. We may have moments of it, but most people don't experience the need, and so they never develop the want.
Mm.
So what we want to do today is we want to show the journey of discipleship. Mentioned it last week, but it's not just recognizing the need for Jesus. It's falling in love with Him. It's developing the want for Jesus,
Mm.
and that is the journey where once you want Him, then He wants you to be who you are, so He can work through that thing that He made. But most people stop at the world needs Jesus,
Yeah.
or I need Jesus, or I'm a dirty sinner, or my heart is desperately wicked. And none of those things are untrue at one point, but this is not about stagnation. It's not
Yeah.
about staying on square one at the Monopoly board. There's a journey here.
Yeah.
And so you don't get to just say the world needs Jesus. So we want to talk about what you do get to do and what
Yeah.
you should do.
You
Okay?
know, this is beautiful, Cal. I love the way you're breaking this down just slowly and methodically and really driving into when people say, well, the world needs Jesus, right? You're taking it to two parts. You're saying, yeah, the world does need Jesus, but what does that actually mean? Number one, like you said,
Right.
when you say the world needs Jesus, the world would say, and people would say, well, that means get people to church. Well, there are already tons of people in church who are not transformed because they're not
Yeah.
experiencing that, right? So that's not the answer.
Right.
And so,
Right.
like you said, well, the world needs Jesus. Oh, just go do something kind for somebody. That's the benevolence thing. Yeah, that's a nice thing to do, but that's not the entirety of it. Or yeah, read the Bible.
Right.
That's not the entirety, etc. So there's this idea of defining what needing Jesus actually is. But then the second part of this was what's beautiful to me is that the world needs to want Jesus.
Right.
And that's a whole different statement that most people have never considered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have to we have to learn to love God. Let's look at it another way. Um, Remember, we did a show on this. Gosh, I don't even know. I've got to go back. We've got to pull out some of this old data and old video. That's a massive undertaking. But there's so much stuff from even 2, 3 years ago it's so powerful, and we forget.
Right.
But that said, this was a show we taught. I think we were in the Murchison building, but um, uh, the we have think about three different levels of faith. Okay, so when you're a kid, when you're on milk, kind of like, well, the world needs Jesus. Okay, it's the same kind of level, if you will. You have the faith. Where do you get your faith from? Most people, not everybody, but most people, especially around these parts, right?
Yeah.
Where does it begin?
It's your family.
It's your family. That's right. Your parents. So you remember. The first faith you ever have is you take on the faith of your parents, right? Typically, your mom or dad or both, or hopefully both, and you learn from them, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to start. That's why family is so important, and it's paramount that our parents plant those seeds at the very least, set the example at the very most. So, our faith, yours and mine both, we would credit our parents. Of course, credit God working through them, but we will honor our parents because of that, even with all their flaws and everything else, right? And we have our own, so we're not competing. But so you have the faith of your parents. Now, what happens when you start to get to become a young adult? Empty nest, all that stuff. You kind of spread your wings. What happens then? You want to know why they believe what they believe, so you want your own faith.
Your faith of your own. Yeah, you develop
That's
your
right.
own faith. Yeah.
Yeah. But the journey begins at, now this is where the real journey is, right?
Yes.
You have faith. You learn to have faith in Jesus, in God. God in three persons, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, etc. So you have faith in. He's still far out. He's still removed, but he's there, and you learn, right? So you go from the faith of your parents to the faith in him, and then as you experience trials and struggles, and your faith has to be used, you have to actually learn how to rely upon God. This is true wealth. Most people don't get this because they don't have to experience it. So what happens is, now in the discipleship journey, you learn to follow him by letting go of everything completely, not losing, but letting go of it, wearing the garments of this world loosely. So you follow him, you become like him. Listen, discipleship, it's not about getting into heaven. It's about being like Jesus. It's about becoming. This is the great news, right?
Mm-hmm.
Heaven's included. Family, it's relationship, it's prodigal come home. All right, so you learn to follow because you understand your need for him. You have faith in him. He's removed a little bit. And then through trials, through discipline, through growth, through perpetuation by him or whatever, this journey of discipleship, you have the faith of Jesus. Now you become like him. Okay, so that's what the journey is. So that's where the meat is. So you go off of milk like a baby and you get on meat, and meat lasts the rest of your life. You still grow, but you understand. I don't study the Bible exactly the same way I used to. I used to devour it, hours and hours every single day. I don't do that anymore because I study it in small pieces, and it's more of an interest in different areas. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But so that journey is the faith of your parents, right? That's a view of God the Father, and you have to start there, or whoever's in your life that can be that to you. Then you have the faith in him, and then you grow into the vessel that he wants you to be. That's where you become like Jesus. You only do what the Father says. You follow just like you're doing it through him. Now you have the faith of Jesus. Now you have the faith of God. Okay? And Jesus did everything he did by faith, not magic wand, right? Remember, you'll do greater things. So,
man,
Kev,
we could stop the show right now, drop the mic, and teach this piece that you just went through. Like I'm having like a hard time even expressing the level of revelation and like spiritual agreement that I feel. Like this is just to our listeners, like this is the gut, honest, dead truth of the gospel that
really
is not being taught in modern mainstream mainline Christianity.
Right.
And it's hijacked by people's emotions, by people's agenda, by money, by power, by all this kind of stuff. And so people are stuck in this concept of your own faith. And that's a culture that is the compartmentalized Christianity you're talking about. It's like, well, my truth or my, and that's where you can see all of these people on crazy ends of spectrums because they don't have the faith of Jesus. They just have faith in him. And it's like, okay, Jesus, you can stay out here. And quite frankly, this is Peter before his denial, right? This is Peter before his rejection. I have faith in you. I'll die for you. I'll fight for you, but I'll
That's
also
right.
run, until Jesus broke him through
Yes.
discipline, through trial. And then
Yeah.
Peter became this rock, right? Who
That's right.
his garment and his shadow was healing people.
Hmm.
And this is such a foreign concept. I just want to say to anybody who listens to this show
Yeah.
today, like this is the wealthiest teaching that you could possibly engage in. I pray that the Lord would use it to open up your heart to it, because it's profound, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's the heart, and I believe God's heart, the Father's heart, is for us to come home, right? We know that, right? That's the thing. Got to come home. We're rounding the bend, prodigal. So
Mm.
that is what we're about, and it's not just something that we get, and a lot of people don't. It's more about saying, "Come on, we're cheering you on." And it's about also what God's doing right now, because the world is gotten to that point. So compartmentalized Christianity is exactly what it sounds like. It's you recognize and can voice. It's mostly in your head. It makes a dip here and there into your heart, but most of the time it's about setting it over here. And we talked about this a little bit. Somebody starting a Bible study, or it's about activities. It's about checklists. Those things are not bad, but that's like saying cheesecake isn't bad, or having a beer or two. I had a few of them the other day, man, and it was great. But uh, what's the meat on your plate? That's
Mm.
what this is. All right. So the need, we want to grow out of our need. Now, I'm not saying the need isn't still there. I'm saying you're not focused on your need anymore. You're focused on your want. It's like saying, stop trying so hard to serve God. You're not his slave.
Mm.
He Start aiming to please your Father. It's
Yeah.
so different. It's so different. You fall in love with him. And so listen to this. Here's a good verse. All right. So this is John 16:7. John's my favorite of the Gospels, because it's deeper, more ethereal. It's the divinity of Christ. All right. But anyway.
Apparently, it was Jesus's too.
Yeah. Well, to be like thee, let's be like him. But this says, but I tell you, I am going to do what is best for you. This is John 16:7. But I tell you, I'm going to do what is best for you. This is why I'm going away. The Holy Spirit cannot come to help until I leave. But after I'm gone, I will send the Spirit to you. So he stayed long enough for Peter's a great example to want him. Peter recognized very quickly that he needed him. He knew, he didn't understand it. He was reckless. He was childlike. He ran out of the stadium with the ball, Matt Ham. But his heart was always his. His heart, he knew immediately, follow me. And he did it, man. Peter was all in. Wash my whole body, So Peter's a really good example of this process. And one of the greatest people that ever lived. But look where he started.
Yeah.
So a lot of people stay in that place because they never have to deal with the denial, because they're not confronted with it. They don't have Jesus physically looking at them, just like, man, that moment. Oh, wow.
Mm.
When he looks at him, Jesus just looks at him after he's denied him.
Oh.
Woo, that was a shift in history,
Yeah.
you know? So,
My
but
gut,
Jesus,
my
yeah,
gut falls out thinking about that moment. And I've had moments before in the past, like, it's funny that I just a testimony. I want to say
yeah,
this. I don't cut you off. I want
sure.
to
No,
encourage
right.
people this, like, something that I experienced profoundly a number of years ago, right after you and I had first met. We were walking through this in my own life, is envisioning and imagining Jesus in the room and looking him in the face in the midst of your own denial, and recognizing that you are Peter, that you are Judas in some capacity, that you have denied your Lord, your Savior, brother, friend, King. You've denied him,
Mm-hmm.
and taken something of the world, whether it's the silver coins like Judas, or whether it's the fear of man's opinion, for
Right.
Peter. And when you have that moment where you look him in the eye and you feel your own denial, and then he says, now, do you love me? Come and feed my sheep. I'm telling you,
Right.
that was a moment where the Peter in me began to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, and that's the thing, is that you've got to be able to be challenged. We have to let the Word of God challenge us. We have to live it out. We have to, but so we're so used to mantras and so used to language and syntax and semantics. When you say discipleship to people, what do they think of? They think of church. They think of a cool book.
Yeah.
They think of a Bible study. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And or whatever. And we have to stop with all that. Stop. That's not in Scripture. Did you see Jesus building churches? Do you see him doing Bible studies? He didn't even have a Bible. I mean, they had the law and all that, but they didn't have any of this stuff. They didn't have Bob Goff's latest. And who gives a crap, right? I don't. I'm just sick of it all.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, what did they have? And they had culture. They had work to do. They had trials. They had struggles, and they had each other, and they had, the one. They had the narrow gate. They had the perfect lamb. But while he was here, he did what he did as a man to not only teach us, but to set the example for us. And that's so powerful. So when you think about those moments that Peter had, or that we have to have, the best thing in my life ever, the blessings are the most enjoyable things. Like sometimes I just look at my wife and I see her hair's pulled back, and I just think, oh my God, I just love her. I just love who she is. But the best thing that ever happened to me was learning that being a Christian it's not mechanics. It's about being completely, utterly in. And most people don't have to go there like Peter did. They don't have to face it. So they fall back on compartmentalized Christianity, which means, well, I go to church here, or I do a Bible study here, or I do this, whatever. And my challenge to anyone is I'm not saying quit doing this thing. I'm saying let go of. Mm-hmm. Come back to your relationship with God, whole relationship. Are you all in? All in is so overused. I don't even like saying it anymore.
Yeah.
And then come back to, where do you spend most of your time? And that, wherever that is, and that may need to change, right? So I'm not saying just, love the one you're with and all that crap. Just, that, grow where you're planted. Throw it all out, right?
Right.
Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, right? But dream. Where does God want to take you?
Mm-hmm.
One of the most we made a kind of commissioned Todd to make a box for someone who is a friend and likes what we're doing and all that. We wanted to kind of show them what we're doing, so we made this incredible box. I say we, Todd made it, but we commissioned him, right? Mm-hmm. We commissioned. I told him, I said, all right, here's basically what I'm looking for. And it was cool. We don't have to get into all the details of it, but we commissioned him. Think about that word.
Yeah, the commission.
The Great Commission. I've never seen anybody more excited to make something. But you know why it was so exciting to him? And I should let him say it himself. But he was jumping like a kid. You could just see God working through him, expressing himself through the box. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. I know you're showing it, but the thing is we have to commission. We have a commission. What is a commission? And so people use the language of, well, I got to go share the gospel, or I got to preach the good news. And that's great.
Right.
But you are commissioned. Mm-hmm. You're commissioned. That means The Great Commission means your job is to go into all the world and make disciples. That's your job. So how you do it has to be how you're wired.
Yeah.
And if you never ever get beyond square one of just checking it off, well, here's my day job, but I do this over here, then you miss out, and you can't have that true peace. So the idea of commission, I know what I want to say is Todd created. He had a vision. He had to dream it up. He still made what I asked him to make, but he did it in a way that he got to bring him into it. His personality that God gave him, his genius for being able to create wood. I mean, it was walnut. It had cedar. I mean, it smelled great. I didn't get the, you know what it smells like. I missed out on you smelling it, but the point is he was commissioned. That means he got to do the thing that was asked of him, but he did it in a way that he was geared.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're called to. So he was high on that versus, he has a day job, which helps pay his bills and all that. But his long-term goal is to do more and more of the wood. And he's got a beautiful shop. 3 or 4 years ago, he didn't. And he does now. So I'm just trying to show the idea of a commission comes from, it starts with the need, and then it goes to the want. When you want God, guess what? He's always wanted you. Your value starts to take shape. Your strongholds are removed. Life is better. It may be harder in some ways because of the season that you're in or the environment that you're in, but you're meant to be there, and you're meant to do the thing that you're gifted to do, or a set of gifts. So the commission, get that word, and we're going to use that more and more. Yeah. The Great Commission is what we're after. Set people free. The prison break happens when Jesus saves us, right? It took him a second, a minute, an hour, a day. It didn't take him long to get us into heaven. That's eternity. But it can take an entire lifetime to get heaven into us. That's discipleship. So you the prison break, but then you got to learn how to live in the freedom of being out of prison. And that's where we are. That's what we want to do. And that's what you cannot compartmentalize. In other words, you can't be out of prison if you're staying in there because it's comfortable. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's kind of out there and deep. But.
Well, you're connecting all these dots and bringing a lot of things together. That word commission, that word commission is kind of hitting me right now too. Being a former sales guy, you think about, well, what's your commission? I sell something and I get a commission. And it's this idea of like a company is commissioning you to do their bidding, right? You're in their business, you're doing their bidding. And, again, there's an old show we did talked about the family business. Are you in God's family business? If you're grafted into the family, you're a son or daughter. God is commissioning you to do his business, to be a part of the family business, which is making disciples. And so you're either receiving God's commission or you're settling for the world's commission. Like that's this trade-off, right? And people have to get to an honest place where they wrestle with the truth of like, what is actually, where am I receiving my commission? And that's a very convicting thought for me as you think about the dynamics of that word.
Yeah. God has commissioned us by giving us life. We use the 4 verses, and we don't have to go through them right now. But even look at Psalm 139. That's one of them, and then look at 13 through 16. And He knit us together in the womb. He didn't put us here 200 years ago or 200 years from now. He put us here right now.
Yes.
Most people don't take the time to actually think about that. They don't feel it. They don't grab it and assimilate it into their heart. That's powerful. If you're here right now, you're supposed to be. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to complain about it until you're, 90 years old and go, well, I should have? I got a dear friend, and I mentioned this the other day. I just said, look at the 85-year-old version of you and go there for a minute. Imagine what life's like, and then think back. What would you tell the 50-something-year-old version of you from that perspective? And then, come up and out of that idea, and then and rejoice because you're still in your 50s and you can you can do something about it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
so
good practice.
so that verse, Jesus is saying it's better for me to go. He was only here for a little while. Why? Because he needed to show the need and develop the want. And what we see is he did that. You know, Peter, James, John, Andrew, Levi become Matthew, et cetera, et cetera. So these guys were willing to give everything to him because they wanted him, because they loved him. They fell in love with him. This is what God's after. This is prodigal come home. It's not mechanical. It's organic. And there is a commission that goes with it. And that commission at the base level is go and make disciples. Become one, show them, grow them, and go out. So go into all the world doesn't mean you have to go to, you know, Czechoslovakia or wherever. It means you go out, dream. Where does God want to take you? And guess what? He will show that to you. Why am I here in Wilmington versus being in Franklin? I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. All three places I still have affection for, but I'm here now. Well, you know, so how do we know each other? See, this is that process unfolding. God does it. What do we do? What does it mean? We follow. We got to get to know him so we can follow him. It's not about making it happen or grinding it out or getting it done or whatever people want on their tombstone. It's about following, right? So you have to learn to do that, but you follow from a place of want, of hunger, of desire for him. And when you do that, you're connected. Now he'll show you who you are and you go do it. So here's another verse. So it's better for Jesus to go because why? Because he's sending the Spirit through us. We're vessels. So we can go be his hands and feet. That's the way it works. So this has nothing to do with buildings and books and all these other things that we like to check off and escape. You know, it's good. It's not it's not prison. It's freedom from prison.
Yeah.
But people don't see it that way, so they rely on everything else. But I mean, Scripture points to this over and over again. You know, I'm using different words, but here's another verse. Think how much. This is John 3:1. I can't remember why I pulled this one up. I'll just read it. Think how much the Father loves us. He loves us so much that he lets us be called his children as we truly are. But since the people of this world did not know who Christ is, they don't know who we are. So, you know, think about the verse, and I can't remember exactly where it is right now, but as he is, so are we. As he is in this world, so are we. Remember last week we used Luke, I think it was Luke 6:40. You're not superior to the teacher, but in the end you become like him. So discipleship is not about church. It's not about books. It's not about benevolence. It's not about having a heart for wherever. It's not even about heaven. It's about becoming like Jesus.
On earth.
And he freed us to become like him, to be in relationship, right relationship with the Father. You remove the middle wall of separation. We can talk about all these doctrinal things, but the bottom line and the simplest thing is that we are here to learn to become like the one who freed us. And when we do that, he does the heavy lifting. Our job is to follow him, whether we are abased or abound, whether we die or whether we live, but to go. And that's where you're free. That's where you're untethered from the world. Now you start seeing the world as people. The earth's great. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, the earth is the Lord's and all things in it, right? Like that's the
right.
thing. The Lord has dominion here, but the world he's handed over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's ours. And so you got the enemy wants to enslave and all, you know, I mean, gosh, we know the whole bucket list of these idiots who are, this is not going to last. It may not be easy for a moment, but all right, here's another one. And this will be my last one to read, but this is one Holly gave me this morning. It's John 12:42. It's interesting. These are all from John. I didn't intend that. But it says, John 12:42 says, even Even then, many of the leaders put their faith in Jesus, but they did not tell anyone about it. The Pharisees had already given orders for the people not to have anything to do with anyone who had faith in Jesus. Man, is that not compartmentalized Christianity?
How true does that ring today?
Yeah, I'm sure she sent me that one earlier today, and it was like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so good. I'm going to use it. So that's yeah, it's just, it's not about beating people up. It's about saying, guys, come on, your life, you're here, you're breathing. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, people have to have, I think one of the things we said a couple weeks ago, Kevin, is the willing heart, right? Like that's the
Right.
one thing that Peter had, was the willing heart. And so he messed
Yep.
up, but he was always refined because he stayed the course. And there are many people
Right.
who are in that place. They've developed their faith in God per se, their own version of that, but they're hanging around that place, and the willing heart is not there to push into this faith of Jesus, like going to that next level, that
Mm-hmm.
next tier of maturity. Um,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you going back to the thing you said a little bit ago about the tombstone. I remember years ago, and this was kind of a play on, in your book, you said this dynamic of, which would you rather hear the Lord say? Well done, my good and famous servant. Well done, my good and financially secure servant, right? Or well
Right.
done, my good and faithful servant. And if you really take that exercise and you meditate on it, it shows you where your affections are. And
That's
as I
right.
processed that in my own life, one of the things that I did is I thought about my own eulogy, and I thought about that tombstone dynamic, right? What would you want written on your tombstone? What would you want, said at your eulogy? And I thought about the book, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that business book, what is it? The 10 Habits of Highly Effective People, or something like that. I can't remember, but
Sure.
it's something like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, I had this feeling that I didn't want somebody to stand up at my eulogy and say, Matt was an effective man. Like,
Mm.
that's crap, right? So why would I read a book that's the 10 habits of highly effective people if effectiveness is not my life's objective, right?
Right. Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather read a book, The 10 Habits of the Highly Faithful People, right? Or the whatever, not that
Right.
it's a habit, but
That's
just
right.
kind of
Yeah.
helping people break off this veneer of compartmentalized, you know, just yickety yuck business, mantra type stuff that's actually not
Right.
changing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. So we want to deprogram. We want to break off humanism, and humanism has seeped into every institution of man. Anything that man ultimately feels like he developed. God, even through the Reformation, God gave us some really neat systems. Education, and there's so many good things that came from that, but it's corrupted because people depart, they become apostate. So what we have to look at is, where is the root of everything? And then you have to remove the all right, so now I want to use this, just tie this in. But the wheat and the tares grow together, and that's scripture. So what do people think about? They don't really think about that too much, other than, well, there's weeds all around, and you know, but our job isn't to remove the tares necessarily. Our job is to be wheat,
Hmm.
and to be robust, and to grow, and to set the example. God's the one that removes the weeds or the tares. And even refers to them as children of the devil, and there's lots of them out there. But they don't. God will not be mocked, and Haman will hang on his own noose. We have to know these things. We have to let God remove the tares, and He will. But what we've got to do while we wait is we've got to be wheat. In other words, we've got to be, what does wheat produce? Bread. Bread of life, Jesus. What do we eat? We are his hands and feet. We are meant to be like him. And so it doesn't mean we are him. It means we become his body. And his body has parts, and those parts are distinct. But as a body, we're a body. It has nothing to do with the building. It has nothing to do with the book or a Bible study. It has everything to do with being surrendered and letting him develop us, that his character would pass through our gift set. And then we go and express it and give it away to people. First line of discipling others is to show them so they experience him. But that means, what is, wheat? Wheat grows, right? It has to germinate from a seed. It grows and it becomes, the head is ready, and it has the fruit, the bloom, and then it's harvested. That's what we're here for. So if you're wheat, then you gotta be wheat. It doesn't matter how many tares you see, just be wheat. And that right there is the simplicity of this. It's not about trying to, emulate everything around you, or it's not about best practices. It's you have to start there. So you have to go back to the basic and then come up through that. Now you can go back and you can really understand the point of baptism. You can understand the sacraments. You can understand why it's important to take the Lord's Supper in the right way, in the right context. And then why do you, or wherever you congregate, whether it's in your home or your driveway or anywhere, it doesn't matter where you do it, so long as you do it from that deeper place with the goal of making disciples. All right, so now it also removes the excuse of, well, I'm not a preacher, or I'm not this, and you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be you. But it's the you that he made you to be and that he lives through. And that's where you find that value, and that is soul satisfying. I wouldn't trade what I had years ago for what we're doing right now. I wouldn't trade it 10 times, a million times. I wouldn't trade it, because, again, it's not about big dough. It's about big flow. He's flowing through you. There's nothing as good as that. So anyway,
I want to bring something in on this wheat and tares thing, and again, probably heard somebody teach on this. Maybe you spoke on. I can't remember, but somebody at one point in time was sharing that the language there, the wheat and the tares, the type of weed that was growing among the wheat looked almost identical to the wheat. It was a very comparable aesthetic, so they look the same on the outside.
Yeah.
One makes bread and one is a weed, right?
Yeah.
And I remember a number of years ago, this concept. I did a sermon somewhere. Oh, it was down at Carolina Beach. Remember down there a little bit. I was in the yard one day and I was digging in some bushes and a snake came out, and it was one of those. And I'm not a fan of snakes, but it was one of those. It was one of those multicolored snakes, right? And the poisonous one is like red on yellow, kill a fellow, or whatever, and red on black, watch your back. I can't remember, but there's a dangerous snake, and then there's one that's not dangerous, and they look very similar. And like the Lord was bringing this revelation, it's like, there are my sons and daughters, followers, true-blooded followers of mine, who are dangerous to the enemy. And then there are those who look the part, but are completely harmless, right? Yeah. And it was like, man, we are here to be dangerous, right? For the Lord, like in a good, healthy way,
Yeah.
And so I love what you said. It is our job to be the wheat, let the Lord take care of the tares, and wheat is harvested to make bread, which is the bread of life. Jesus comes out through everything we do. He's honored and glorified. Like that analogy in itself is enough for somebody to meditate on for a week and ask the Lord how they can continue to be wheat.
Yeah. Well, it's simple. It's not, the reason it's not easy is because the nature of faith is you have a choice. And if you don't take those baby steps and choose him over and over and over every day, then and be patient. You know, a whole lot happens below the soil. I mean, you think about it, you know, evangelism is like fishing, but discipleship is like farming. And, you know, you may have to be a little bit patient when you're fishing, but you have to be extremely patient when you're farming. It's a long game, and but it's infinite. It self-perpetuates, fruit, seeds, over and over again. So there's no lack, there's no fear, but you know, I just want to read the text. I guess it's from today. This is a good way to hold on to your conviction. Faith is the dividing line between all that pleases God. Remember, we want to please Him. Let's aim to please Him. It's not about serving Him as much as it's about pleasing Him. If you want to please Him, then you'll go serve people in His name, and you'll do it in the way that you're made, and it'll satisfy you, and people will see it. It's just I just I just want to shout it, you know. But faith is the dividing line between all that pleases God and all that does not. That's what faith is. Which means there is no room for applying moderation to it. So moderation's great, but it has no place. Beer drinking, moderation,
Right.
you know. But faith, there is no room for it. It's like saying, well, Jesus was moderate in his crucifixion. He was crucified entirely for us. Where does that leave us? To live entirely for Him. And if you're not doing it, you need to be challenged. All right. Okay. So now be sober about your convictions and whether or not the choices you make today line up with those convictions. Okay. And this is where people get kind of diverted or split off. The enemy, you know, scares them, pulls them, uses a hook. Be sober about your convictions and whether or not the choices you make today line up with those convictions. For the choices you make today will surely matter tomorrow. This is why you have to go to your 80, 90-year-old self for a minute and then look back. What is the rest of your day about? What is it about? And keep doing it. Okay, so the choices you make today will surely matter tomorrow. All right, so here's the question on these texts. This is the challenge part. Does anything matter more to you than God's faithfulness to you? Does anything matter more to you than God's faithfulness to you? If it does, you know, you need to come to Jesus moment, probably. The second question is, does anything matter more to God than your faithfulness to Him? So those are two really good, convicting questions. This is about helping people grow, not, you know, assaulting your churchianity. It's just starting. You have to recalibrate. You have to blow it all up and start over and see what grows from the ashes. You know, burn this thing down, start it over. What comes out of the nutrients of those ashes? And what you're going to find is people still want to get together. They still want to assemble. They still want to praise God. They still want to commune. You don't have to go and manufacture that. It's going to happen. But you have to be a vessel. And those things are out there. And if you just go do those things, that doesn't mean you're a vessel, especially if you're locked in a compartment. So does anything matter more to God than your faithfulness to Him? I would say no. Does anything matter more to you than God's faithfulness to you? Well, He's already proven His, you know. But it's about conviction. So I just wanted to read that to add it in. But remember, the first thing Christians say, the world needs Jesus. When people say that, when you hear that from here on out, you know, what's your response going to be? Yeah. Well, if somebody asks you, what does the world need? What's your response going to be? Yeah. So, you know, we want to wrap it up on that idea, maybe what that response should be.
Well, there's a difference in the world needing Jesus, like you said, and the world needing to become His disciple, right? Like that's the true gist of that. Like you said earlier, there's this idea of knowing Jesus at a distance and then becoming like him, right?
Yeah,
The world needs to become Jesus, right?
that's
And
right.
like as you put it, the world needs to want Jesus. They need to want to become him. And that's a whole nother level that most folks have probably
Right.
never considered. And I love how today's show just really breaks down. It got me excited today hearing you teach through this, Kev. Part of our mission right now is some fundraising dynamics toward creating curriculum that can be taught,
Right.
and scaled and shared, and all these things. I just had a really cool picture of you being able to sit down and create a course or a lesson or whatever along these lines. And I thought in the past about how you had done some recordings on our website, to kind of get in the flow of that, and how the show has taken more of a shift towards that, this year especially. And it's exciting for me because this teaching has got to get out into the world, because this teaching at its root is answering the Great Commission, which is to make disciples for those who would listen. And it's just a call and kind of a rally cry to anybody who has been fed through the work that we do. Now is the time for this to truly begin to change lives, because that's what it does.
Yeah. Well, and that's, see, what happens along those lines, going from the need to the want. The need never goes away, right? Just remember
Mm-hmm.
that. We're not saying the need's gone. It's just you build on it, and now you have want, you have hunger. You can't sustain anything unless you want it, unless you are hungry for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, hunger. It's not about good habits. It's about developing hunger. There's so much to this, but just to think about it this way. When you love people the way God does, it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's fun. I get tired of people sometimes. I get lots of texts from people, and people that I just adore. But I get worn out, and but it's a labor of love. It's not trying to be somebody. It's not trying to win over or be known or any of that stuff. It's just not. So the more people that can jump into that, it's about becoming who you are, who he made you to be. But if you don't understand that, and we can help you get there, it's a labor of love. It's not about getting your stuff or your money or any of that stuff. We hope that you see it, and you'll jump in and help support it. But not if you don't want to. And so it's about that want. But just to wrap up that idea, Jesus was efficient. He did not stop. He kept going. And some people he had to dust his feet off from because they wouldn't follow. But the ones who did, he met them. He gave them what they needed because they were willing. So we have to learn to see people that way. It's not about being a doormat. It's about being efficient. We don't want to waste the days. But we have to begin to see people the way God does. We do not let them walk all over us. We do not let them get us off track. We don't listen to garbage. But what we do is we offer what we have, and we go on and on and on and on. So what you have to offer that no one else can exactly, that's where you have to dig in. But it has to be built on the foundation of surrender. Surrender is the only place that you actually have freedom with God. When you surrender, he frees you. And then you can begin to grow into who you are. And what happens is all the fears begin to fall away. But you have to think about, where are you going to go today? Who are you going to encounter? And what is do you think about Jesus in those moments, and how he is in that scenario? And just start there. Very simple.
Man.
So
That's so convicting and so good. And I think that there's an element as we kind of move toward the end of the year. We'll probably have a couple more shows, and then, as we normally do, take the end of the year to kind of recoup, be with our family and whatnot. And we'll make sure we announce that schedule. But I feel like that there is this kind of cry as we head into 2023 that's just what you said. It's just, listen, we are a people who want to be like Jesus to the world around us through
Yeah,
our gift sets. That's what it
right.
means to be
That's
fearless.
right.
And we're leading people toward that. Come along if you want. We're not going to, argue with you, get down in the mud with you. We are going to be firm and we are going to move forward. We're not going to be walked all over and pandered to. And, we're not here to convince you. It's convicting. But there's an element of, this that I feel like is part of our collective mission statement for
Hmm.
2023.
Yeah. Well, let's just take a minute here before we wrap up and restate what it is that we do.
Yeah.
Not just from a, oh yeah, those guys they have a podcast and got a few people listening. God uses the least expected. He does things slowly and then they're built right. Okay, so this is we're being obedient to the thing He's called us to do. It's not about how many Twitter followers you got or any of that. All of that, if He uses it, great. If He doesn't, who cares? But what we care about is if that one person's listening. Now, a lot of people say that, but we actually mean it.
Mhm.
So what we're doing is something God's doing. We want to stay honest and adhere to that. That's what Jesus did. I only do what my Father tells me to do. That's what He did. Through Him, we now do that. Okay, so you got to learn to listen to that, and you got to learn to step into it. But you can do it in baby steps, big picture in mind. All right. So how do we end up doing what we're doing? Well, everything we're doing is cool, right? It's got a cool factor to it. It's different. It's got business. Why business? Well, because that's where people spend their days. So it's not about marketplace ministry as much as it's saying we have created um, two entities. One is a nonprofit, a traditional environment where we have these initiatives. So we help people, we spiritually set them free, and there's all kinds of things to that. It's all biblically based, but they have to be free, right? The foundation. And I know you've been talking to different people and helping them see it's not just educating people, it's about getting the deeper thing. You have to build your house on the rock.
Yeah.
So we do that. That is the first layer of what we do. It's true discipleship. It's not Bible studies, it's relationships, walking with people, setting them free. All right, so from that point on, where do most people get left? They get left behind because they don't have that consistent walkthrough. So what we do next is we say, all right, you're starting to get a revelation of who you are, what you're here to do. Let's help you do it. And that's where we have another initiative that helps the physical needs. We don't do benevolence. We don't feed people. We don't, pay people's light bills. There's plenty of people out there doing that. We don't start a homeless ministry. I'm glad that those things exist, but what we are here to do is say, we're going to set you free. When you're free, you start to understand why He put you here, and then we're going to help you walk that out. Now, what happens is some people become great employees, some people become great entrepreneurs, some people become artisans, some people become teachers. Whatever it is, if God wants you doing that, it's already blessed. We just want to cheer you on and help you accomplish that. So if you need a course, if you need a computer, if you need something, we can help you do that. But it's not just some come along and here's a bucket of chicken and a roof over your head. You got to be growing, and so that's where the more that we grow, the resources we have, that's our heart goal. And we are doing it. I mean, we've helped a lot of people. So that's this teach a man to fish, feed them while they're learning, get them to that place. And that isn't happening now. There's a holistic process. Now, where does Fearless Trading Company come in toward Fearless Life Center? What we've done is because some of those people begin to make great products,
Mm-hmm.
and so coffee and hot sauce and truffles and wooden products and, cool, just we're going to do a lot of different things. But those things are our people in one way or another, or their businesses, or it might be health and wellness. It's endless. But what we want to do and what we're doing right now is we have built a marketplace for those products. So those products now, we have an outlet for them, and then it helps them continue the process of living out who they are. Like, Attilio is my son-in-law. He's so excited. I love seeing his face light up about growing things and making. He's going to make all kinds of amazing sauces and stuff. So that process, it's a closed loop, and that's what we haven't seen in the past. You got business over here and faith over there and compartmentalize this. This changes everything. And that's why I don't have any doubt that success will be there, because we don't want our greedy hands on it. We want to be like Jesus and manage it in a way that sets millions of people free.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about, making money. It's about making disciples. And that does not exist out there in the marketplace that I have ever seen. So think about that. You set them free spiritually. You help them in the physical realm to get to that next place. It may take a while, we're growing, but it's slow. But then we set the marketplace for them. So that becomes a way for them to put their products into, and we want to have a whole lot more to it. I don't want to. I know I'm going on and on, but it's really important for people to understand this.
Yeah.
So that said, even the profit that we make as a company helps the Great Commission back into the nonprofit. So it's really a powerful idea, and we're still learning, the ropes. But it's just nothing out there like that. So anytime you buy something or donate or whatever you do in between, it goes toward the Great Commission.
That process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, it's beautiful to see it start to come out of the ground, and I told somebody the other day, I said, you know what, man, somebody said, how's it going? And I said, it's going awesome. I said, but the truth of the matter is there's a part of me that still has moments and days, because what I know we are doing is building an invisible house, right? It's a house that you work on that nobody can see until the moment when they can. And then they go, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful house, right? But thus is the kingdom of God, right? It's hidden.
That's right.
It's within you. It's the mustard seed. And so that's where I always land with going, thank you, Lord. This is so you, because when you're doing his work at his, to please him and not for your own gain,
right,
that's what it's going to feel like sometimes. But that's the beauty of the kingdom of God and it's worth everything that you pour into it. And so it's exciting, man. I love where we are, where we've come from and where we're going. I'm just so encouraged right now.
Yeah. Well, God is definitely working in this, and we just want to honor him with it. And, I'll just say back to what you just said is, I was talking to a guy the other day, and I've said this many times, but I think it was clicking. But you do literally, figuratively, and even you can do this literally if you want to grow things. But you have to look at your life, what's left of your life, or however much, as a patch of dirt and a bag of seed. And when you plant those seeds, a whole lot happens below the soil. But yes, when it germinates, when you see it start to germinate after a long time, you start getting a picture of the harvest. And to me, that's the way Jesus thinks. And so he certainly talked about it a lot. So
yeah,
anyway, that's what we're up to. And most people don't get it, but they will eventually.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for taking the time today to pour out and really give that picture to maybe anybody who's listened to the show for a while and has forgotten the mission or has never really understood it, or somebody who's listening early and needs to understand. So as always, we're here to connect, be available to you, to continue this mission to make disciples through both our products as well as the teaching, mentoring, and all the different dynamics that we bring to the table as part of Fearless Trading Company and Fearless Life Center. Kev, as we wrap up today, man, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, just remember that the journey is about learning to want, and going from not just the need but the want. And Jesus left for a reason, and now we have an expectation on us, and we have to go live that out. So what does that look like? So that's the challenge for you. But we're here to help you get there, and you're not alone. And jump in.
Well, it's a good one, man. Well, thanks for everything today, for your time. For those listening, we so appreciate you. Make sure you share this in your communities, leave a comment, send us an email message, get plugged in. However you need to. You can reach out to me directly, Matt at fearlesstradingcompany.com. You can go to the website, fearlesstradingcompany.com, and fill out the contact form, and we'll be there. So, Kevo, man, love, peace, man, be well. And to everybody else listening, thank you guys.
Cheers.